The U.S. remained neutral through the first couple of years of World War II, but in December 1941, the Japanese brought the war to Pearl Harbor.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
And the following month, Nazi subs began attacking commercial shipping along the U.S. Atlantic shore. Despite dogs having been used extensively during periods of war and conflict, at the time, the U.S. was the only major power without a formal military working dog program. New Jersey socialite and dog show enthusiast Aline Erlanger took up the proverbial lead to establish Dogs for Defense in January 1942. With the help of the American Kennel Club, Dogs for Defense procured dogs for the U.S. military war dog program, known at that time as the Canine Corps.
My rover, he can hear a mile away, and he can see at night as well as day. I'll get along somehow if my country needs him now. I'd like to give my dog to Uncle Sam.
Erlanger later received the War Department's Exceptional Civilian Service Award in 1945 for her efforts. Public support of donating dogs for the war effort was robust, with estimates of 18,000 dogs offered. The Doberman Pinscher was still a new breed, having only been developed some 50 years earlier in Germany. But in those few decades, the breed had proved itself a worthy police and soldier dog. The Doberman Pinscher Club of America was a big supporter of the war dog effort, and in 1943 it promised that its members would provide the Marine Corps with as many Dobermans as it needed throughout the war at no cost. This would be no small undertaking, as the total number of Dobermans registered with the American Kennel Club in 1943 was only 1,500. By the end of the war in 1945, that number had more than doubled due to the demand. The War Dog Fund was established to help pay for the extensive procurement and vetting process. This campaign allowed owners to donate an enlistment fee in exchange for a rank for their dog. This gave owners a sense of patriotism. Donated dogs went on to one of 6 war dog training and reception centers across the country. The dogs and handlers were trained following the program outlined in the Technical Manual 10-396, War Dogs, published in July 1943, of which Arlene Erlanger had a hand in writing. The manual covered the 32 suitable breeds, but that list was eventually weaned down to around 5, which included the Doberman. Of the breed, the manual noted their speed, power, keen nose, tractability, and exceptional agility. The manual covers grooming and care, feeding, housing, first aid, equipment, record keeping, basic obedience, and advanced training for specialized use. 10-396 is an interesting and enlightening read on the understanding of dog care and training at that time. In the video description, I've included a link to a free online archive that provides a scan of the manual's 147 pages. Close to home, war dogs were used to patrol and protect U.S. ports, munitions, factories that made war supplies, and the nearly 4,000 miles of Pacific and Atlantic coastline, which proved to be a susceptible entry point by foreign saboteurs. But it was the Pacific Rim that the breed truly shined, in particular in Guam, New Guinea, Saipan, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa. Of the 5 primary uses that war dogs were trained for, sentry, attack, scout, messenger, and casualty, Dobermans proved to be highly skilled scout dogs. Silent scout dogs detected and gave silent warning of the presence of a foreign individual or group. They were particularly effective at warning of ambushes or attempted infiltrations. The dogs were used to scout ahead of patrols, search pillboxes, dugouts, tunnels, and caves. They allowed Marines to get much-needed sleep in their foxholes, knowing that they would be awakened if the enemy approached. Life was not easy for the dogs in the Pacific Rim. Some suffered from a vitamin B1 deficiency that caused rear paralysis, which eventually was reversed with appropriate treatment. All suffered heavy hookworm and heartworm infestations, both which are endemic to the area. It didn't take long for the Japanese to understand that the Marine Corps dogs were causing them to lose their advantage in the lush jungles, so they began to target the dogs. Several dogs were injured or killed as a result, but their sacrifice saved the lives of countless Marines. When the war ended and the troops began returning to the States, there was no plan in place for the dogs. Assuming the dogs were no longer trustworthy in society following their training and service, some had already been euthanized before Captain William Putney, veterinarian and commanding officer of the 3rd War Dog Platoon which served in Guam, arrived back in Camp Lejeune. Putney fought for the returning dogs to be given a chance at detraining, and if considered temperamentally and physically sound, then to be returned to civilian life. "559 dogs remained in the Marine Corps at the end of the war. Within 12 months, 540 of them had been returned to civilian life. 15 were euthanized due to health reasons. Only 4 were euthanized because they could not be detrained. Some dogs went back to their original owners, some discharged with their handler, and others found homes among the thousands of adoption applications received. It's a testament to the determination of Captain Putney and the trainers and handlers of the War Dog Training School that there was never a report of any of the detrained dogs biting anyone. As the dogs of the 2nd and 3rd War Dog platoons died in service, they were buried at a cemetery in Asan, Guam. In 1963, the cemetery was leveled by a typhoon, and the remains were moved to the jungle in central Guam. In 1989, Putney went back to Guam to visit the cemetery. He found it in utter neglect, overgrown in waist-high grass and encroaching jungle vines, the markers fallen over and strewn about. Once again, Putney became advocate for these dogs. He pushed for years, giving talks, lobbying the government, fundraising, and gaining the assistance of the United Doberman Club to not only move the cemetery, but to create a lasting monument. In 1994, the remains and markers were moved to Naval Base Guam, and the first official war dog monument in the U.S. was dedicated with a 21-gun salute. The bronze Doberman was sculpted by artist Susan Bahari. It depicts Kurt, the first war dog that was killed in action on Guam. Kurt's last alert of a Japanese outpost saved his battalion from stumbling into the large main body of the Japanese force. It was estimated that he prevented the deaths of more than 200 Marines that day. Kurt lies atop a granite monument which Putney himself provided, inscribed with the names of the 25 war dogs that gave their lives in the liberation of Guam. In 2002, I had the great honor of meeting Captain Putney and listened to him recount his experience at Camp Lejeune, on Guam, and his post-war efforts to detrain the war dogs and establish a lasting resting place to their memory. As he told his tales, his passion and emotion was clear, and as a result, in the course of an hour, never have I alternated so often between laughing and sobbing. Captain Putney passed away the following year at age 83. I will never forget meeting Captain Putney, and thanks to him, we will never forget our canine heroes of World War II.